let's move forward here because it's time to get to a little bit of music here on the show, and it's your rock music, Harm.
Let's go.
Your rock music because it's time for Who's Impressed, Harm. Oh yeah, we got to get some of your. I got to clip some of the funnier things you say. Get that into this intro.
Oh yeah, do it.
We'll have to see. I can go back and find something. Maybe I'll just clip me talking about the McWard's big stick, and we'll get that in there somewhere. Harm, who's impressed you this week?
Akito Hirose.
All right.
Coming
Akito
straight out of the
Hirose.
NCAA. Seeing the level of poise that he has with the puck. I mean, right from his NHL debut, and keeping in mind that this wasn't a debut against the Chicago Blackhawks. This was the debut against the LA Kings, who are shaping into one of the best teams in the Western Conference and have been really, really hot lately. Against that level of forecheck in terms of the speed and size against him, that's among the toughest challenges you could throw a player into. And right from that game, we saw Hirose show a lot of confidence where he just didn't feel any nerves.
Yep.
It's interesting. Like a lot of times when you sort of have a player making their debut and they get the puck and there's a lot of pressure on them, especially when they're not used to NHL pace, they panic and make a rushed decision. You didn't see him make any rushed decisions, which I thought was impressive. In fact, there were situations where he'd hang on to the puck for a split second extra just to allow another passing lane to open up from the defensive zone for a little slip pass on the breakout.
Right.
So that impressed me. And also his agility in tight spaces when he recovers a loose puck and he's trying to pick up those first 2 or 3 steps to escape, the quick change in direction, that allows him to evade forecheckers. And that's an asset that I've been impressed at how well it's translated at the NHL level, because I'll tell you, for defensemen, it's not so much the top speed that matters. Sure, if you have an incredible top speed, that's awesome, but it's more the acceleration, right? With Quinn Hughes, for example, he's not the fastest guy in a straight line.
Right.
He's just got elite, out of this world level of agility. And so it's almost like when you have a car, being more focused on the 0 to 60 than you are about the top speed it can reach. That's what it is for defensemen. It's your first 2-3 strides that are everything, in my opinion, for that level of escapability in the defensive zone, for being able to beat a forecheck on the breakout. I've seen that from Hirose. Obviously, there are moments where you see, sure, he could probably, in the corners, there are a couple of instances where you're like, okay, like he's not perfect yet, which of course you don't expect him to be.
No.
But by and large, he's exceeded my expectations and looked way more comfortable in an NHL environment than I expected.
And you can absolutely make the argument that it was too bad that the Canucks missed out on right shot defensemen Jake Livingstone and Sam Malinsky. I also think you can make an argument, and I know JD Burke of Elite Prospects would make this argument, that Akito Hirose was the best left shot defenseman free agent coming out of the NCAA, which is a good ad for the Vancouver Canucks. This is a guy that you hope can play NHL games for you beyond this season, of course. And, he's getting this opportunity right now. This is great, but they've also ran 16 defensemen out there after tonight. So it's not like this guy is immediately shot up to be a top 6 candidate for the NHL team next year. He's going to be in the AHL next year, but this taste is kind of like we talked about a little
why
earlier.
not? Why can't, like, he should be able to compete with Christian Wolanin. He's not the front runner. Like Wolanin is definitely the front runner, but he should at least make it very, very difficult. He should be pushing like that. I'm expecting a really, really strong camp because he's going to be 24, 24. Like he's, how much younger let me put it this way. He's older than Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think what's going to be interesting there is there are going to be some battles. I just think that pro hockey and experiencing a year of it makes a very big difference on a player to think that they're ready for the NHL, whether it's in Europe, in the AHL, or anything. I think there is just such a advantage for Christian Wolanin and even Jack Rathbone, who's probably going to be battling with Hirose in that spot. And I do agree with you. I think there could be a battle. I think if he has an awesome offseason and he really learned from his time here in the NHL, and maybe he's around here with Rick Tocchet, all those things are going to help him get that chance. I just think once you've gone through pro training camps and you've gone through pro seasons and you've seen the thing go, what to expect from preseason games, everything. Like there's a lot of stuff that he just hasn't learned yet that I think is going to affect him in training camp. So he's just simply got to rely on his skill and how he shows at camps to look good. And I'm curious with Hirose if he does have enough of those raw skills, because I think his game translates extremely well when you're actually playing. I'm wondering what he looks like in a training camp environment, because I think Jack Rathbone has those skills that stick out in a camp setting. I think Christian Wolanin has those skills that will stick out at a camp setting. Hirose's strengths are going to look better in game action. So I'm curious to see how
really
that looks. And
true.
that's where
It's
it matters,
point.
though.
But that's where it matters, right?
Yeah.
It's how you perform in the games. And I found it interesting how Rick Tocchet mentioned that there were a couple of plays down low where we know that for Hirose, he needs to get stronger. But Tocchet highlighted how his defensive technique, defending down low, the way he took two hands right on a guy's hips to win that battle, he said that was textbook. It was the sort of thing that he wants to show the rest of the team.
That's big.
So that's what
Here's
comes
the problem, though. I've heard that same type of thing said about Will Lockwood and how he forechecks and all these things. So this is something you hear, and I get it means something. It doesn't mean something every single time, because I've heard this about Will Lockwood and his penalty killing in the AHL.
But this is in an NHL environment.
Good
right?
point. Yeah.
And Tocchet doesn't he doesn't just throw praise out. He's a pretty honest guy, and you could tell that he genuinely meant it. Again, to be very clear, I'm not saying he's a front runner. He's an outside shot.
He's in the conversation. You're saying, though.
Yeah, I look at him as the sort of player who is probably battling with Guillaume Brisebois in terms of who's on the hierarchy to be the first call up in case of an injury, sort of thing.
What would you make the odds of Hirose being able to jump Jack Rathbone in the offseason after training camp? High from his play.
I haven't seen enough in Rathbone. I just don't see the level of consistency. And with Rathbone, he isn't as smart of a decision maker as Hirose.
Right.
That's
got more raw skill.
He's got more raw skill.
For sure. Probably a better skater. But decision making is everything.
Decision making is everything. And man, it's been he's not reliable. It's just the biggest thing. He's just not a reliable player. And again, I just spoke about Tocchet being honest. He said, look, yeah, there are positives in Rathbone's game, but he also doesn't have the consistency in terms of that decision making for when to pinch, when not to, positioning, decision making, all those sorts of things. And for me, the fact that Rathbone can't kill penalties,
he was the other night, though.
But that's this is game
for sure.
Whatever. Yeah.
And you know what? And that's where Hirose can get the step up. If he comes into camp and it's like, I want to kill penalties. I work, it's something I studied through the off season. Give me all the tape that I can. Impress the coaching staff. I think he has
a lot more potential defensively to be reliable than Rathbone because of that intelligence.
Right. No, it's fair. It's completely how big is intelligence at the NHL level and just hockey IQ? It's massive. It's what keeps a lot of guys in the AHL throughout their careers. It's what keeps guys in the KHL.
Also, a lot of me saying that is also me just kind of being down on Rathbone and sort of viewing this as I don't think the organization views him as having an NHL future.
No, I don't think
team.
So. Yeah, and that's what will be interesting with him in the offseason, if there is an organization out there that believes that. And can the Canucks get a pick back? Because it's going to be very difficult for this guy to find success in Vancouver. He's had a long run. He's had a long run here with the Canucks to figure it out. It just hasn't happened. Injuries have obviously hurt him and his chances that way, but you're right. There's a lot of things that just haven't clicked at the NHL level.
And the difference too is, again, I don't want to read too much into two NHL games, but with Rathbone, he has more of that raw skill and the top end speed, but the passing, he ices the puck a lot for a guy who's supposed to be a strong puck moving defenseman.
From watching him this year and last year, there is consistency has really hurt his game. Consistency of playing has really hurt his game, and I think not having that kind of I don't even know how you're almost on a pedestal when you're the number one defenseman. You have NHL future. You're playing on the power play. He wasn't on that pedestal this year because Wolanin was there doing all that. So he lost a lot of time from that. He lost a lot of time from the injury. he hasn't been able to consistently play and get touches. And how much do we hear players talk about how important it is to get touches on the puck? Like it's been a tough season.
Yeah, and the other thing too is for me, it's just what's Rathbone's identity? Okay, it's as a strong puck moving defenseman, right? If he's going to make an NHL impact, it's going to be with his transition value. That hasn't translated at the NHL level. There's only been one game this season, or even over the last 2 seasons, the one against Chicago, the second leg of the back-to-back, where I was like, wow, okay, he's consistently making these passes. He's on the mark. He's sharp. Wow. But other than that, again, he makes way too many mistakes on the breakout for a guy who's supposed to be a good puck mover.
Yeah, you're right. That should be your, like, if you have your bread and butter, you got to work
that.
with that.
Like that's got to be your strength, right?
No, it's true. That and even the power play, like he hasn't, not like he's getting a ton of minutes on the power play, but it's not like he's shown anything at the NHL level yet.
Yeah,
and struggled this year in the AHL as well. Like a lot of really good, strong-looking one-timer slap shots, but a lot of them missed the net as well. So it's been a down year for sure.
And that's where with Hirose, I was like, okay, right from your first NHL game against the LA Kings, similar sort of player in that he's going to make his value more as a steady puck mover than he is as a big defender who's going to break up cycles and bully guys in front of the net. And you saw it translate against one of the best teams in the Western Conference, right? Again, I'm not going to read too much into 2 games this late in the season, right? He could like down the stretch, he could, have a couple of really bad games, but I was like, okay, like that's translated right away. That's important.
It's a great thing to build off of and make that your bread and butter too, just being a smart defenseman, because you can, Rathbone, if he does live up to his bread and butter, he's got to play with a defensive guy.
Yeah.
You can't put him with Quinn Hughes. Could Akito Hirose down the road, if everything goes perfect, be like a guy who plays with Philip Hronik or Quinn Hughes if he gets to that point? Yeah, because he's that type of defenseman. Rathbone just isn't that. Rathbone needs a type to be his partner. It seems like Hirose, like a Luke that's
Shen
really good.
Type.
Yeah, and for Hirose, doesn't seem like he needs any type of partner from the early. And you're right, it's 2 games. But hey, we're at the end of the season. What else do we have to talk about? Let's spend 20 minutes on Akito Hirose.